Hello there, guys. And welcome to Aligning the Stars Extra. I think that's what I'm going to go for right now. We finished the podcast, and I came up with a little tiny topic to talk about at the end.
We're not done talking yet.
No, we're not. We stopped recording, and we go, what if? So, in this little mini episode, in the last full episode, we talked about Master and Apprentice. Jordan just finished reading that guy. And while there are many things that we could talk about, it was Jordan read in so fragmented.
Yeah.
And then there's also the Thrawn book, and it's been so long since we both read that one. So I figured, hey, I want to take one aspect that really stands out and that I talked about in the episode, and that is the prophecies.
Yes.
So
cool.
I'm going to go down the list of the 6 prophecies, and I'm going to get Jordan's reaction to the prophecies being heard and what you think the connection is.
Love it.
All right, so prophecy 1 is, she who will be born to darkness will give birth to darkness.
Very interesting. And I wonder, I guess if you were to take it from the context of like they're being very literal, I think you have to look at it as being a literal. That's Anakin's mom.
You think so?
I think so. She who is born to darkness gives birth to darkness. Shmi Skywalker was born to slavery, darkness. The birth of Anakin was of immaculate conception sort of quality. One of the things we talked about in the podcast was the book Plagius. Plagius is a really interesting book because it deals specifically with Darth Plagueis and Darth Sidious both going to Tatooine, because Tatooine happens to be a dark side force. Like, there are certain planets that are light in the force, and there are certain planets like Dagobah and Exegol and stuff like that are dark in the force. Plagueis and Sidious went to Tatooine in one of the many chambers that you see in laid out in Operation Cinder, and they started doing experiments with the Force, specifically with midichlorians. And this is where you will lose some people, but what it was, if you look at like how prophecies tend to be, right, in real life, people propagate the prophecies, right? They become an embodiment of the prophecy.
Right.
And Plagius was very much all about the prophecies as well.
Right.
And what happened was he was trying to create the chosen one, but for the dark side. Or he was just basically trying to create the dark side chosen one.
Right.
The Force rebelled and created Anakin, who in the end did bring balance to the Force in the end.
And actually, that's something I want to talk about later. But yes.
Right. But I think that prophecy specifically refers to Shmi Skywalker.
Okay.
I think that's very interesting.
If we take it even more literal, the first one that comes to mind is Mother Talzin.
Ooh.
And that is Mother Talzin being the biological mother of Maul.
Wow. And Dathomir is a dark side planet.
And they are called Night Sisters.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was the first thing that came to my mind when I heard this in the audiobook.
Wow, it's kind of crazy how we both kind of went different directions with that
I get it. I get that. And my only argument against the Shmi argument is that Shmi isn't dark.
Right.
She was born... She who will be born to darkness
will give
birth to darkness. And she wasn't... But yes, she was born to slavery.
Right.
So, if we're taking the most literal.
Right. But that's really interesting. Oh, I'm already liking this segment. I'm liking it. I like it.
All right, so we can sort of skip over Prophecy 2, which is when the Kyber that is not Kyber shines forth, the time of prophecy will be at hand.
Right.
That is literally saying the events of Master and Apprentice happen.
Right.
It's Skywalker time.
Exactly.
So Prophecy 3 is when the righteous lose the light, evil once dead shall return.
When the righteous lose the light, the evil once dead shall return.
Yep.
Huh. I'm getting a very Rise of Skywalker, Palpatine coming back sort of thing here. That's kind of what I'm feeling, although that one's kind of a tough one. That's a really interesting prophecy. Are you feeling the same thing?
What leads you to saying that it verges on sequel era?
The evil that was once dead shall return. When Luke chooses to become one with the Force, leaving Rey as the only Jedi.
Okay.
Yeah.
My interpretation of this was, again, quite literal.
Yeah.
When the Jedi lose sight of the light.
Yeah. The evil that once dead shall return.
Once believed dead.
The Sith. Yeah.
Shall return.
When the righteous lose the light. Yeah, but did the Jedi truly lose the light?
I mean, Clone Wars.
True.
But you could even take it to we'll call the Republic righteous.
Right.
They were corrupted by Sidious, by...
Yeah. I mean, it was all the Sith had been part of their machinations for 1,000 years, had been up to causing that to be the case. Very interesting.
I think there is something there, maybe with Obi-Wan, with Luke. Right. But I think the one that struck me right away, after hearing it again, was, well, we can assume that the Jedi are the closest to the light. They're the righteous. Right. That, well, the antithesis of light is the dark side, the Sith.
Yeah.
And it's believed, and in their arrogance, they believe the Sith was destroyed.
Yeah. Yeah. Always two there are.
Always two there are. And so this is a little off topic, but I know that you have said to me, how does he know that?
Yeah.
How does Yoda know that?
Yeah.
I point to you that Yoda seems familiar with the Tomb of Bane.
Very true, because he did go, and Darth Bane was the one who used Darth Revan's call to only being a master and apprentice, and that's it.
And it seems in that episode that Yoda is familiar with it, or at least familiar with the dark side, and
he is
what
familiar.
The threat is.
Yeah, I mean,
if not having been there before, knows that the power and the temptation and the fear is not real.
Right, and the dark side could never be truly defeated. Right. Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting.
Even if you build a giant ass building on top of a...
Yeah, that's a little bit of Jedi hubris, don't you think?
They built their own shrine over it, and then the temple.
Yeah.
So it's something that they used to fight over.
Yeah.
Is these divergences in the Force. Sound familiar?
Sound very familiar.
About something about the sequel trilogy divergences?
Right. Huh.
I'm not... Look, it's only been a couple years, and I'm not about to jump on to maybe the sequel trilogy's actually good.
But I'm not ready for that.
But there are things I would like to explore in that.
I'd like to.
Now, in my opinion, it's not quite bad. The sequel trilogy. It's like I can't quite call it bad, but there are things that make a lot of sense in the connections if you look backwards.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Fascinating. Yeah.
Prophecy 4. One will ascend to the highest of the Jedi despite the foreboding of those who would serve with him.
Anakin. Easy.
Sounds like Anakin.
Yeah.
Now, he wasn't actually a Jedi Master.
No, but he was on the council.
And
there was no higher position
There was no higher position
than being on the council.
Yeah, and really...
Besides being Grandmaster.
Yeah, besides being Grandmaster. And you can't look. Is there anyone else that this could be?
Well, and if you look at that moment, too, when they elevated Anakin at the behest of Palpatine to become part of the Jedi Council, that was like the last straw. That was the last bit of Jedi hubris that was just cast aside. And they just allowed their own... So the Jedi used their own basic, like, flawed reasoning to... like cast aside the last little bit of whatever light they were holding on to. You know, at that point, they're going into full-on war mode, and instead of becoming the defenders of peace in the galaxy, they're no different and no better.
I mean, they plan... There's a part where they hatch a plan of assassinating Dooku.
Yes.
So...
They talk openly about insurrection against the Chancellor of the High Republic.
And meanwhile, they also said that Dooku isn't an assassin.
Right. Yes.
At the beginning, in season 2, in movie 2, is like he's not an assassin. He doesn't just murder people.
Right.
And then, like, half a war later, it's like, what if we assassinate Dooku?
Exactly.
And it's like, that seems like they fell pretty hard.
Right, exactly. Yeah, so that would definitely be...
That sounds like Anakin.
That's Anakin by far, yeah.
So, Prophecy 5 is the long one.
Okay.
So, I am going to try to split this into parts.
Okay.
So, the first segment I will use...
Why don't you read the whole thing?
I will read the whole thing.
Yep.
Only through sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the Nameless. The danger of the past is not past, but sleeps in an egg. When the egg cracks, it will threaten the galaxy entire. When the Force itself sickens, past and future must split and combine. A chosen one shall come, born of no father, and through him will ultimate balance of in the Force be restored.
So it's the Chosen One prophecy.
It's the Chosen One prophecy.
Okay.
But we hear that last part in the movie.
Right.
We know of that last part. But what I found interesting was the beginning part.
Yeah.
Only through the sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the Nameless.
The Nameless. Cleanse the sin done to the Nameless. Would that be the Jedi children? No.
I view the Nameless as the citizens. Average, ordinary people.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, what do the Jedi do during the Clone Wars? Is they start focusing on the Republic, protecting the Republic, protecting
the Nameless,
the Senator, and forgetting about the small people.
Got it. Yes.
Essentially what Ahsoka discovers.
Right.
Is
when she discovers the Jedi hypocrisy.
Yeah. Is that they're really just fighting the Republic's war. They're fighting for the Republic, not fighting for its citizens.
Right. Defenders of peace throughout the galaxy.
Defenders of peace.
Right.
The danger of the past is not past, but sleeps in an egg.
The Sith.
The Sith.
Yeah.
And
Dark side.
Weird analogy with the egg, but
right.
When the egg cracks, it will threaten the galaxy entire.
Right, and that's with like Sidious making his presence known.
And this one is where I stumbled. When the Force itself sickens, past and future must split and combine.
When the Force itself sickens, The past and the future must combine? Interesting. I wonder if they're talking about... I don't know. That's really...
That's the one that kind of stumped me.
The past and the future must combine. Like, I want to say, like, for me, it feels like the past and the future, like... Because you have to look at the entirety of Anakin and Vader.
Mm-hmm.
He only completes the prophecy when he kills Palpatine at the end. It wasn't Luke that brought balance to the Force. It was Anakin.
Right.
After he was redeemed. So the past and the future must come together.
Mm-hmm.
I see that as being Anakin becoming Anakin again.
Mm-hmm.
The past and the future.
The past Anakin, the future Anakin must combine.
Yeah.
To be
everything that he is in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because only Vader could have picked up Palpatine. Only Vader could have taken that Force lightning.
Palpatine's too thick to be picked up by anyone else.
2 C's thick. 2 C's.
I think that's the one that has stumped me, and I think what you said is the closest thing to
I mean, it's the only thing that makes sense because
like you can't like Obi-Wan. You got Luke. It's like you try to put this together and.
Because this prophecy is about Anakin and no one else. No one else. Mm-hmm. It cannot be about anybody else.
Yeah.
So when talking about that, the past and the future, I think that I am right on that sense. But who knows? I mean, that's really interesting.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because after this, I want to talk a little bit more about this can be no one else. So Prophecy 6, the last one of 6.
Right.
There are 6 prophecies, and this is the final one. He who learns to conquer death will, through his greatest student, live again.
So obviously that is Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, which leads to further on to Yoda and Luke, so on and so forth, and the rest of the Force Ghosts as they become one with the Force. Right?
It'd be also cool to think that Qui-Gon, being obsessed with these prophecies, doesn't realize that this last prophecy is about him.
Yeah. That is so cool.
That is cool to think about.
It really is. I think that that story of Qui-Gon, not becoming a full Force ghost, like he's not able to he wasn't able to do it. I really find that to be an interesting story. I really look forward to hearing Liam Neeson, reprising his role in Obi-Wan Kenobi here soon. We get to hear his voice as Qui-Gon, and I mean, I think that's a direct. I think that is a direct link to Qui-Gon himself. That is so cool.
So now that these are done.
Yeah.
You actually proposed another part of my question, which is something that popped into my mind and why I didn't go with my second question in the podcast.
Okay.
Is let's explore that Luke is the chosen one.
Okay.
Let's explore that Rey is the chosen one.
Okay.
Because ultimately the chosen one will bring balance to the Force.
Correct.
Now, what is your definition of balance?
Light and dark, existing equally.
But
it has to.
Is dark part of the balance? Because if there were 5,000 Jedi and 5,000 Sith, the galaxy split straight down the middle.
Right.
And both sides don't war.
Right.
Is it in balance?
Good point.
Now, right before you answer the question, I do agree that true balance is finding your center between light and dark.
Correct.
But is the Force that way?
Now that you mention it, no. It seems like the only way that there could ever be balance in the Force is by the absolution and destruction of the dark. Specifically, how the Jedi, when they reached their height, was at a time when the Sith were unknown.
Mm-hmm.
They were unknown. And the peak of, like, specifically right now in the High Republic, the peak of their powers, knowledge, thought, understanding of themselves, the world, and the galaxy were better then without the dark.
And because it was perceived to be absent, that they became arrogant.
Correct.
And that allowed the dark side to seep in.
Right. Very interesting.
This is the part where I turn you on the head and I say, this is just a thought proposal and getting you into the mindset of how the Jedi fall.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This is turning into the head of, like, this is actually how the Jedi, not like balance is all light.
Yeah. It's arrogance.
It is arrogance. For the sake of argument, we will say that is all light.
Right.
But is this something that is struggled by, I teased in the most recent book, is that this was perceived to be dark feelings.
Right.
Regret, anger is dark side.
Right.
Is wrong. Is that something that we can explore more on?
Yeah. Well, to the Luke chosen one question, I've actually maintained for a long time, before I really fell in love with the idea of Vader / Anakin redeeming himself and actually bringing balance. I actually maintained for a long time that Luke was the chosen one. And I find that it's interesting that Obi-Wan feels the same way. Mm-hmm. You see it in Twin Sons, the episode of Rebels, when Obi-Wan and Maul face off. Mm-hmm. And, after what I believe to be one of the most powerful and compelling lightsaber battles in all of Star Wars.
Yeah.
All of 3 hits.
Yes.
All of 3 hits, but the emotion, the strategizing, all of the 30 years of everything between them all exist in that moment.
The fact that Maul tries to lightsaber headbutt
Yes.
Obi-Wan
Yes.
the same way he did Qui-Gon.
Yes, and the fact that Qui-Gon recognized it, that Obi-Wan recognized it immediately, saw how he was going to attack him, switched from Form 3 to Form 2.
And the arrogance and the pride in Maul.
And recognized, I'm going to do this anyway.
Is that, this would be the ultimate kick.
Yeah.
If I were to kill Obi-Wan the same way I killed his master.
Absolutely. And
the fact that Obi-Wan recognizes this.
Yeah.
So good.
I mean, that moment where, like, I really do believe, and I hope that we get to see that live action moment in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I would love, again, this is tangent.
Right, total tangent.
But I would love for, like, in my dream opening to Kenobi, it is, title comes up, slow fade to the sky, to the starscape.
Here come the
Pan
twin sons.
down, and you see desert, and it pans across the desert. You start hearing something. It grows slightly louder and louder. And then you realize, then it cuts over to Obi-Wan, full robes, facing Maul's pyre.
Oh.
And that's how it opens.
Oh. And keep getting flashes of that fight throughout the entire series.
Not even have to like fight, like, cuts to it, but like just the opening of,
dude,
like, it's like, this is where
Disney, if you're listening,
dude, like you don't even have to start off like that, but just like an episode that starts off like that, in front of Obi-Wan, in front of Maul's pyre, like, the fact that Obi-Wan gives Maul the Jedi treatment on how they're respected are returned to the Force, right? That their physical bodies returned to the Force. The fact that this was mentioned from a certain point of view, that Obi-Wan had flashes of him standing in front of a pyre.
Right.
On Tatooine. Now, I don't remember if it actually says on Tatooine. I think it does.
Okay.
But I mean, it could be Obi-Wan. It could
Right.
be Qui-Gon. But it could be Maul.
Oh.
I think he's. In my head, he says on Tatooine.
Right.
And the only reason why, and unless he's doing that for Luke's uncle and aunt, but
right.
honestly, they're way past that point.
Right.
So, like, Maul.
Yeah. Well, and when he takes him down and he's cradling him, he's like, is he the chosen one? And I think when Obi-Wan says yes, I don't think it's just lip service.
No, he actually believes, because that also plays into him believing that Anakin is past salvation.
Right.
That
Once
is
again,
also Obi-Wan.
From a certain point of view, right? Yeah. And my point of view for the longest time that it was the only person that could have brought balance to the Force was Luke, because he was the only person that could bring Vader back.
Yeah. Once
again, still goes back to Vader was the one who brought balance, right? According, like, there was no balance. Granted, they destroyed the second Death Star, and they killed Palpatine, and Vader was gone. But the war still raged on for a year or so afterwards.
Yeah.
And then the New Republic never really truly got a firm hold on the galaxy before the First Order came in.
So let's briefly touch back on these prophecies.
Yeah.
And see if they apply
to the other characters.
To Luke.
Yeah.
She who will be born to darkness will give birth to darkness. Doesn't quite work with
Padme.
Luke. Doesn't quite work with Padme.
Yeah.
She wasn't born to darkness.
And didn't give birth to darkness.
Yeah. The only thing is be Anakin being entered into that.
Right.
So, Prophecy 5. It unspools with no father.
Right. And that's the thing. Could you say it for Rey?
So, here's the thing. Rey, well, her parents aren't born of darkness.
No, they're not.
They were offspring
of darkness.
Of darkness.
Pure darkness.
And did Palpatine actually get busy, or was that just like a Boba Fett style clone?
I would like to think that maybe Palpatine got his freak on at least once.
Just once. Yeah, I don't.
Something. Oh yeah, dark side.
Oh.
It just got weird.
Oh, how was it for you?
Oh,
he's
God.
probably into choking, right?
Oh God, absolutely. Absolutely.
So you get the darkness part, and then you go over to Chosen One, no father. I mean,
yeah, it can only be Anakin.
But stepping away from the prophecies as they're written,
right?
Looking at Luke.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, great guy, stellar guy.
Right.
But there was still the war afterwards, and that can be chalked up to...
And how much of a part in that war did he actually play a part in?
Right.
Almost none.
You can chalk that up to just, governments being governments.
Right.
And fanatics being fanatics.
Right.
So let's go back. And yet we have the First Order come back up.
They were the Empire was truly never knocked down. Like we see it in Mandalorian. There's still, he says it best. I can't remember who he says it to. He goes, he says it to, I think it's Ahsoka. Or maybe not. I can't remember who Din says it to, but he says basically, the Jedi fell a long time ago. Yeah, well, so did the Empire, and they're still searching for him every day.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, our main enemy during the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian was the Empire.
Right.
They're still not gone.
Yeah.
Right?
And you can also then play it into the Prophecy 3. When the righteous lose the light, evil once dead shall return.
Right. So the
Empire coming back.
Coming back as the First Order.
Yeah. The dark side coming back.
Rey is really the only one.
So this is where there's a shower moment where it's like, is Rey the chosen one?
She's the only one who finished everything off.
Yeah.
She finished it.
She finished it.
Like, and I get that that's the point of episode 9.
Yeah.
To finish off the whole everything.
Mm-hmm.
She had to be the one. The Rise of Skywalker. She's Rey Skywalker, right? She is the next Skywalker. So let's start at the beginning then. The prophecy then is laid out, right? Those 6 prophecies are all about Anakin. And we've maintained from the beginning that it's about Anakin, Vader, Anakin, right? Because you have to look at Anakin, Vader, Anakin, right? 3 separate entities. Without Vader, Luke doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Right? Without Luke, Rey never gets the lightsaber.
Right.
She never follows the path.
Right.
It all comes back to Vader. It all comes back to Anakin. It always will.
Another thing that just popped into my head, when the Force itself sickens, past and future must split and combine. Anakin, Palpatine.
Okay.
Sidious. The split happens in episode 6. Anakin turns back to the light side. Palpatine, he's gonna stay dark.
He's gonna stay dark.
Must split and combine. Episode 8, 9.
Yeah.
You got Ben Solo.
Right.
And Rey Skywalker combine to defeat Palpatine.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's probably the only part that would make that's probably the only real prophecy in there that would really apply to Rey, other than she was the one who truly ended it.
And the catalyst, again, like you said, and it comes back. This comes right before the one we all know is that the chosen one is of no father.
Right.
Anakin. It starts with Anakin.
And finishes.
It must split, combine to ultimately end.
Right.
It's an interpretation. This is the whole thing with in said in book and in just real life. It's up to interpretation.
Well, and you can look at that interpretation, and specifically like you in Master and Apprentice, like these prophecies are looked at as almost like, what would the word be? Almost like heresy in a way. Almost looked down upon. Oh, you read the prophecies? Like, oh, look at this fucking guy. Like he's the Trump supporter. He's the one watching Fox News with the conspiracy sites open. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. Not to get topical here.
I am super excited for you to read The High Republic.
Yeah. Oh, there's probably. Is there a little bit of? Are they actually doing the Star Trek thing a little bit and doing some social commentary in Star Wars right now?
No.
Oh,
no,
damn it!
I mean, we already have that with the Empire,
right? Exactly.
We already got that.
I think Palpatine tweets. I do love the fact that like Ducat was like his Twitter page was just rehashing Trump's tweets to like Star Trek lingo and stuff like that. It would have been better as the Emperor, I think.
Though I love the fact that once he was banned from Twitter,
then he went to the character he played as the Bajoran. Yeah. So
you can't
good.
do that. We can't do that with Palpatine.
Well, yes, you could. You could do it with Sheev Palpatine and then with the Emperor. Something, biggest dark side ever.
Thank you all for coming. This is the biggest. This is the biggest gathering of First Order supporters ever in the world.
He's doing the don't look at the finger asshole things. Yes, it was the biggest in the world. The biggest Death Star. Biggest Death Star.
Much bigger than the last one.
Much bigger than the last one. This one is definitely not blow upable.
It was entirely on Valorum, the size of that previous Death Star.
It's those Ursos. Ursos. Oh, we definitely diverged.
Oh my God! Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I go back. I mean, the prophecies always will have to come back to Anakin. They have to. I mean, and it's fascinating because you look. It's kind of like the question I asked you in the podcast. Yeah. All three of those characters had different parts to play in the overall part. You know, the question I asked you was Maul, Sidious, or not Sidious, but Maul, Tyrannus, and Vader. This one's the same thing. You have Anakin, Luke, and Rey. All three bigger parts, or parts to the bigger puzzle. And I think, though, that Rey comes close. Luke is such an interesting character. He really is. I think that, you know, I guess if you can look at the three parts of a whole, Anakin, dark side, Rey, light side, Luke is gray. And always was gray. Yeah. And I think that's a fascinating place.
I would say that Rey is also more, I mean, from what we saw, is also not on like full gray.
I would agree, but at the same time, she had the choice. She had the choice to join the dark side a couple of times and blatantly went to the other side, as far over to the other side as possible. Yeah. Right? I mean, obviously, this is an analogy I'm bringing up right now, and I came up with a thought right now. But I do believe that in the end, you know, you see when she activates her lightsaber, it's an orange lightsaber, and I find that very fascinating. It was very close to a yellow-orange color. Yeah. And I'm curious what the High Republic tells you about lightsaber colors, because, you know, obviously we know from Bleeding of the Crystals that that's what actually creates your color. I'm curious what that means, like when you have the different variations of blues and purples and stuff like that. And I know that there's been stories of Jedi that have actually used red lightsabers before. Like, it's not that big of a deal to them. So I'm just kind of curious. Like, you see, you know, with Rey being, I agree. She's definitely gray.
Okay, So the thing that makes it a bit more difficult is the fact that we actually don't get to see Rey as
a Skywalker.
As like post 9, we don't see who she is as the last Jedi. Right. We don't see her as this is her final form. Right. She's been in transition those 3 movies.
It's, you know what's funny is she almost gets the same treatment as Luke got. We never got to see full power Luke until Mandalorian. Right? We never got to see that. The one thing that I do like about the sequel trilogy has its parts where the movies in parts by themselves are fantastic. I actually have a lot of respect for The Last Jedi these days. Yeah. Rise of Skywalker, I'm still having trouble with. A little bit.
Yeah, I actually am going to be doing a rewatch of the sequels again.
Nice. You'll actually, The Last Jedi, you'll find to be a surprisingly well done movie. Yeah. But the thing that I really like, you know, the character that I liked the most out of that was Rey. Star Wars, one of the things it does best is says that this normal everyday person has anybody, and the whole thing with the Jedi and with Rey and with Luke and all that is that anybody has the potential to do great things, right? And
until episode 9.
Until episode 9, right? But with Rey, she's this nobody. And
Right.
I actually really appreciated the fact, like, when in The Last Jedi, when Kylo Ben tells her that your parents were nothing, they were nobody, I liked that.
Yeah, that was
I
very
really
good.
liked that, because what that meant is she had no connection to Luke, Leia, Han, Chewie, anybody. She is just somebody who is extraordinarily talented in the Force and was able to tap into this. That made her character so much more fascinating than being the granddaughter of Palpatine.
Right.
That's where Episode 9 kills me.
Oh, power from some white dude in power.
Exactly. Like, we don't need Ivanka Trump. You know, like, and that's the thing. Like, they basically turned her into this Anakin-type character that, like, she was predestined to do one of two things. And it just made her character really shallow. And so I really hope that Rey gets an opportunity, especially like Daisy Ridley. She's been very critical of how her character was handled in Star Wars. I hope that we get to see her again. I hope that we get to see her being a badass. I really do. Because
it's gonna take
a long time.
It's gonna take a long time to.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get another 12,
that.
13 years, like, before we. I don't think the Skywalker saga is done. I really don't.
No, I agree. It is not.
They're
done.
just gonna give it the usual gaps that it's been getting.
They're gonna give it a lot of breathing.
They're gonna give a lot of breathing room, and that's where, you know, when we talked about 2 episodes ago. Well, we're not even on a podcast right now.
Well, you actually, at this point,
we are getting close.
We're 46 minutes.
Okay, so on this a couple episodes ago, you know, we were talking about like the MCU that, you know, Star Wars is creating, and I'm curious to see what it brings to in the end. You know, like, what there's been talk about retconning 7, 8, 9. I pray that they don't do that. I just hope that they make the content that exists between the trilogies rich and deep, so that you can kind of forget 7, 8, 9.
Because essentially that's what ended up happening with the prequels.
Exactly.
The one I skip over mostly now is 2.
Yeah, you know what's funny is, like, 1 was the one that I skipped over a lot when I was younger. And I actually really enjoy 1 these days.
I want to say, I just recently watched episode 1 again. People were not fair on young Anakin.
No, they weren't.
Like,
good character.
He's actually well portrayed.
Yes.
Like, he actually does his job very well and is a convincing character for his age.
Yes.
Portraying, like people were more mad about seeing Anakin being a child than looking at how this child would react to everything that's going on and being told in front of all these Jedi Masters that he's the chosen one. Good fucking way to give that dude a complex.
Exactly. Like
holy shit, you should have put him into a different room, put him into playtime, and just like have this discussion with adults, and when the time comes, you can talk to him about this. So, because you're gonna turn out like Harry Potter and turn out like a hero complex.
Oh god, total hero complex. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'm actually going to be texting, when we're done with this, I'm gonna text Matt a meme. And then what I want him to do is put this meme over the top of what we're talking about right now. It is one of my favorite memes, and it is about this scene. So, beyond that, out of context for sure, I hope you enjoy the meme.
It's a good one.
It is a good one.
I think that pretty much this, ultimately, I think this is its own podcast.
I think it is its own podcast too, and that's cool because, we sat down intending to do just one of these, and I guess one of the things we've been, I don't know, it was kind of almost discouraging a little bit last week when we kind of talked about what do we want to talk about, and we were trying to I guess for lack of a better term, figure out a way of talking about both Star Trek and Star Wars in the same episode in a way that was able to kind of blend and like kind of draw one way or another.
Right.
I actually think that this sort of thing is the perfect way.
That this is where we can have one episode that's sort of like focus
Just
on
kind of
doing both, or having a centered episode about one or the other, and then side parallels to
exactly,
each, and then having just a shoot the shit moment.
Exactly. And that's what this has kind of been. And so it's really actually refreshing and really enjoy the fact that
because ultimately this boils down to what we
This is what we do. This is
work.
what we do. And that's the thing. Like we said in the podcast, we don't in the last episode. I'm just gonna go ahead and say the last episode. We mentioned that, you know, we've been kind of holding back a little bit on the nerding out, and I don't want to do that anymore.
No.
And so one of the things though that we have to do is we have a whiteboard in our kitchen.
It's a terrible whiteboard.
It's a terrible whiteboard, but
that's a side fact.
Anytime we talk about this stuff, like I have no problem rehashing stuff. So we should just like feel free more to talk about that. But you know, so yeah, this is a great little topic. I think I'm looking. So Matt has got the greatest podcast cup ever. It says Quarks on it, and it's got a picture of Quark on the front, and it says free refills, and then down below, only one per customer.
Yeah, limit one per customer. This is actually taken from the mug in the episode.
Oh, that's right.
This is like recreated.
That's right. That's right.
This is the closest thing I could get to actually buying the mug itself, because oh my gosh, I would love to have that mug.
Seriously. So I think I'm about to go pick up. There's a book out there, and I'm surprised I don't have it. It's The Rules of Acquisition. I'm a businessman. I manage a restaurant. And like there are some rules in here that are just so ridiculous. But then there are some of them where you're like, that makes a little bit of sense. So I think that's a great, like, kind of in the same context, like taking just some content that's out there. And like we'll just kind of read through some rules of acquisition and kind of see what we have to say about that. Because I wish that Star Trek had those like prophecies. And there is one prophecy, and we're not going to talk about the aligning prophecies right now. But there is a prophecy that kind of aligns with both Star Trek and Star Wars. Mm-hmm. But you know, Star Trek isn't rife with prophecies and mythology. Like Star Trek is very much a practical sci-fi show. Yeah. Like one of the rules that Gene Roddenberry had for making episodes was the problems that the crews have to face should feel real. Right. Like it should feel as real as possible, right? Gene Roddenberry really kind of screwed his writers over sometimes, but at the same time, that's the thing that I've really appreciated about Star Trek is that it felt grounded. Right? Like the technology felt just real enough that like, and we see like flip phones were as a result of
the communicator,
right? You know, and our touchscreen phones now are like the data pads from the next gen, so on and so forth. Right. So Star Trek very much lays the groundwork for stuff like that. Yeah. And because it's based in reality, you know, it doesn't have that like mythology to it where Star Wars is all mysticism. I can tell you, I can draw out with a pen and paper how the warp drive works in Star Trek. Right. Because it's practical science. We do not have the technology or the ability to do that, but it is practical science. It is a proven theory. Right. I couldn't tell you one thing about how hyperdrive works in Star Wars. Right. Like they referred to Star Trek back in the day as a wagon train to the stars. Right. It's like it's a space opera. It's a space. It's all about like the day to day, right? Where Star Wars is the battle of good and evil. Yeah. And so I wish that Star Trek had a little bit more of that, because this conversation that we've had tonight, I mean, we're talking for an hour on a set of prophecies laid out in a brief section of a book. Yeah. Like we're talking encompassing maybe half a page. Right. And maybe half a chapter worth of content, right? Because it's really interesting. Like in Star Wars, like these people are like Dooku stopped looking at the philosophy at these like prophecies because he was being ostracized for doing so.
Yeah.
His apprentice Qui-Gon was only interested because Dooku was into it.
Here's a question for you.
Yeah.
Why was looking at prophecies looked down upon?
I would think that it would be contrary to what the Jedi at the time were thinking. I think that it was poo-pooed because they felt at the time in their hubris that there wasn't just one Jedi that could bring balance.
Why did they not like visions?
Because visions lead to the dark side. Or do they?
Or do they?
Or do they? Very interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
That's a little thing I'm going to put into your head right there.
Yeah.
Is what led the Jedi Order
to
to
ignore them.
Be so antagonistic against Jedi who had visions? Because they're not all visions are from dark side.
No.
It's just the Force.
Right. The Force is trying to tell you something.
The dark side is just in Anakin's case is manipulating.
Well, those visions were put there by Palpatine.
Right. He's using the Force
to
give Anakin visions.
And is the communication between Rey and Kylo just a set of visions between the two of them?
Highly
in HD.
Yeah.
4K.
Yeah.
Interesting.
5D?
5D?
What are the other two dimensions? Is it smell? is the fourth dimension smell?
Is the fifth dimension Kylo's impressive chest?
No, the fifth dimension is Kylo's high-waisted pants.
That's right. There you go. But yeah, I mean that's interesting. Yeah, because I okay. So the question I have for you then, because you're referencing that, am I going to hear about that, or like, am I coming up High Republic and Dooku read-throughs? Are you referencing this for a reason, or are you just positing a question?
I am positing a question.
Okay.
But it is something to think about.
Yeah.
Because they do play into those books.
Okay. Yeah, I really,
because you have Sifo Dyas in Master and Apprentice briefly.
And he talks specifically about his vision. Yeah.
And he's ostracized for it. Like, as much as the Jedi can.
Well, yeah, I mean, his vision directly led him to the Kaminoans to commission the droid army, or not the droid army, but the clone army. 20 years before. 20 years.
Yeah.
Like, was he studying the prophecies? Because they didn't go too much of that in the books.
You are, in my opinion, reading these books in just the fucking perfect order right now.
Very interesting.
Master and Apprentice and Dooku tie in a very interesting way to the High Republic.
Well, and those are probably two of the earliest books in canon that you also get as well, timeline-wise. That's well before anything.
Those are also somewhat more of the more recent books.
Right.
And these the story beats that were planned out for High Republic were planned out much in advance to when they were actually being written.
Ooh.
So the fact that you have some carryover with Claudia Gray doing both.
Okay. All right.
I cannot. This is why I can't wait to do this, and I know that we're going to be doing just separate episodes on when you finish these books.
Yeah, just for
because
this reason.
Otherwise I will just go too far in during the podcast.
Yeah, so I guess for this podcast, I guess I'm going to make a commitment. Next time we record, I will have put in some time into Dooku. and then try to get to the Light of the Jedi started at least by the next time I record, because I'm fascinated now. Like, I mean, that's such an interesting question. Like, it's not something they really touched on.
No, it's the fact that, you know, in the movie, Sifo Dyas has these had this vision he commissioned the clone army well in advance, and you hear about him in Master and Apprentice.
Right.
You know, he's suffering a little bit.
Yeah, and I guess it goes back to, you know, even as well, like, how do Jedi deal with emotional trauma, right? How do the Jedi deal with, I mean, me personally, I've never been to war. I've never fought any battles. I've only been in a couple of fights in my life, and yet I've got issues. You know, like, life's hard. Life's tough. And I live in the real world. You know, like, how does a Jedi
who is living at the peak of their era,
right,
with minimal conflict,
how do they deal
with a catastrophic event that happens that affects the entire galaxy?
And they can do nothing about it other than just say that's the way it is and move on. That's the Jedi way. Or is it?
It's not.
Very interesting. I really need to get into the High Republic.
If they stand back and do nothing, who are they protecting? They're not protecting anyone.
And you could argue, because the way the Jedi in the Skywalker saga era, right, the way they very reactionary, right, in the way they react. They're looking inward, right? And so I find it really fascinating. Once again, like, I want to see that schism. I want to see where that schism happens. I want to see what leads to the Jedi becoming this insular force during the Skywalker saga. Like, specifically, like, what we see during the prequels. Like, what leads them to be there? And if it's only 100 years later, what was the thing?
What happened?
Yeah. Because
the best part is,
like the burn in Star Trek,
yeah,
there has to be something. There has to be something that changes the moral fabric
of the Jedi. And this is the best part. I don't have all the answers.
And I need to quickly catch up to you so that we can talk about this. Yeah. So, yeah, I got some goals. I did take a bit of a break from Star Trek and Star Wars for a moment, but I am
starting to feel a little bit of that fatigue as well.
Yeah, and I would recommend it too, because, you know, despite that, like, I felt the need, specifically when we started podcasting in the beginning, to, like, making sure that I'm keeping up. And I started, like, watching a lot of, like, other YouTubers' videos on Star Wars and Star Trek, and I got into the same old fucking thing that happens with Star Wars and Star Trek, is you start watching too much and you start losing your own opinions, you know, and there's been some good content put out there lately by some YouTubers, and I've been really excited about it, but at the same time, it's like, I still want my content to be mine. I want my thoughts to be my own.
Right.
And so, but it's also good to take that break, you know. Don't be afraid, because, I mean, you've gone through DS9 and most of Voyager, and you still have Enterprise. I'm actually really excited about you watching. So when Enterprise starts, I know I said I was going to watch Voyager with you. I just couldn't bring up the guts to do it. I couldn't. There was just so much bad in the beginning that I don't know if I can handle.
It is a rough.
I couldn't handle 186 episodes of Neelix. I couldn't. Like, it's just not, like, good character, just annoying as fuck. But when you get to Enterprise, I am going to commit to watching episode by episode with you. And it is not a show that I want to gloss over episodes, but after you finish with Voyager, take that break. Yes. Just take a week or two off. Give it some breathing room. Like I said, I mean, I was watching Westworld. Like, we will talk eventually a little bit about some other sci-fi at some other point, only from the standpoint of, like, themes.
Yes.
And Westworld, I don't know why I stayed away for so long. Matt has been eagerly, like, he gave me his HBO Max password, and what did I do? I watched Game of Thrones first.
Yeah.
He gave it to me.
Fair enough.
But he gave it to me for Westworld. I just finished the first season, and I've had that password for damn near a year.
And then you sat on like the last like couple episodes of Game of Thrones.
I know,
and not finishing it.
To real quick, when it came to Game of Thrones, I binged the first 7 seasons, fell in love with that show, and then I knew the 8th season was going to happen, and then I proceeded to just wait
for like a couple months.
And then I watched the entirety of season 8 in one day, and then got pissed off, and I don't want to talk about it. So, as is most of like what has happened with with Game of Thrones fans.
I kept telling him, man, just join us at this point. You're so close.
I know, and so I did. And anyway, so Westworld has been fantastic. Like I said, I was watching some Chuck, just watching some other shows just to kind of get my head around like it's
other plot lines that aren't in black and white speckled space.
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I mean, I tried to watch The Expanse. I might give it another go, but definitely take that break.
Because I watched DS9, Discovery.
Yeah, Picard,
Lower Decks,
Mandalorian, Clone Wars,
Discovery Season 3.
Yeah,
and it's like,
whoo, yeah.
Like this is like.
So, just for reference, though, and we said this in episode 0.
Yeah, we
got to watch all of that.
Yeah,
and it's all there for us to watch.
Yeah.
Like, thank God. Like with Discovery. Or CBS All Access is becoming Paramount Plus here. They're all turning into the Plus or whatever. Thank God for CBS All Access, and thank God for Disney Plus.
Yeah.
I mean, I was skeptical in the beginning. Like, what is Star Trek going to look like? What is Star Wars going to look like on these streaming only services? Are they actually going to be worthy, or is it going to just be YouTube quality fan films? Right? And
that's speaking with some fan films being really good.
Really good, exactly. But what we're getting is movie quality budgets, movie quality TV, and it's amazing. I mean, we just ran through a list besides like Deep Space Nine and Voyager. In those lists, everything that he just said has been out just in the last couple of years and all of that. And there's still so much more.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say don't be afraid to take that break. I did, and it's been worth it. Like I got tired of it, and I watched like 8 episodes of Discovery last night.
Yeah. It's
just on a whim.
It's bad when you've got about 2 hours before you go to bed and you're too tired to play video games. So then you're sitting, okay, do I do just a casual watch of a Star Wars movie? Do I watch Voyager? And then you just sit there and like you're visualizing the war in your head.
Yeah.
You got Star Wars, you got Star Trek, and then apathy wins.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. It every time.
So it's bad when it gets to that point. So I'm gonna need a break definitely after Voyager.
You should definitely take a break, and then I want to be able to talk when you finish Voyager. I think I want to try to watch at least a few of the episodes, specifically like Year of Hell. I want to catch the Unimatrix Zero episodes.
I just finished the one where 7 of 9 is tempted to go back to the Borg.
Oh yeah,
and so you got that giant like fucking city complex.
Yes,
and you got the Queen from the movie.
Yeah, they actually brought back Alice Krieg for that, and it's like, oh, are you kidding me? That is so amazing.
I'm like, damn.
Yeah,
that's respect.
Yeah, and there is so many story. Yeah, there's so many good like episodes there at the end. So I'm definitely going to catch some of those before you finish up, and then we will review Voyager as a whole. which is a scary thought. Yeah, that's 187
Jordan,
episodes.
if it takes
3 hours.
if it takes 2 hours for us to review both Mandalorian and Discovery independently,
Yeah.
if we're going through 7 fucking
No.
seasons of
No.
Voyager,
We're just gonna
that's gonna take like
hours.
actually like we better show up like at like 5 p.m.
Well, I'm just saying more like, talking about like
Yeah.
themes and what have you. And I love the fact though that Voyager has gotten a little bit of love. I mean, the fact that we still see Voyager, like they chose of all ships in Discovery season 3 to focus on. They didn't go the Enterprise. They didn't do the Defiant. They didn't do anything. They went Voyager, and I love that.
Yeah.
So I may talk a little bit of shit about it, but it does have some great episodes in there, and so I'm definitely gonna catch it. And when we review it, it'll just be more like a general hey,
highlights.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We will probably actually. I think what a good thing for that might be is here's a list of episodes you should definitely hit on your way through,
and then we'd still probably miss some.
And we'll still probably podcast for 2.5 hours on it. So, but yeah, I mean, this is kind of cool. Like, you'd want to be in a second podcast. Done on the same night.
This is like back to the like episode 0 and like episode 1 of like here's the topic, and then hey, let's go on like
1,000 different tangents.
Tangents. Yeah, like
yeah, it's perfect.
It's perfect.
I thought this was perfect.
This is why we're doing it.
Exactly. So
hell yeah. Well, I mean that's
it.
Our wrap for. I guess we're gonna call this an actual episode.
Yeah, we will. So this will be what, episode 4?
4. Yeah.
Wow.
Episode 4. Hell yeah.
Awesome. Well, I guess I'm gonna go through the usual closing stuff. Hit like, subscribe.
We got links down below.
Twitter. Comment. Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud.
Hell yeah.
So, without further ado.
May the force be with you.
And thank you guys so much for listening. Stay safe.